They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but sometimes the only way to serve it is piping hot, right in the face of everyone who thought you'd just quietly swallow the poison they fed you. My revenge wasn't a meticulously planned campaign. It was a dam breaking, a final desperate act of self-preservation disguised as malice. He called it betrayal. I called it finally telling the goddamn truth after choking on his lies for years. And if his world caught fire because of it? Well, maybe he shouldn't have handed me the matches. It started, as these things often do, with a lie wrapped in the mundane. Pickleball. Who knew a sport favored by retirees in Florida could become the flimsy alibi for a middle-aged man's descent into full-blown narcissistic chaos? Kevin, my then fiancé, a man 16 years, my senior who carried his 54 years like a crumpled suit he refused to iron, had suddenly developed an all-consuming passion for pickleball. Or rather, for the late-night sessions that stretched until 2, sometimes 3 in the morning. "It's the only time the courts are free, Sarah," he'd say, smelling faintly of unfamiliar perfume and stale bar air, not sweat and Gatorade. "You know how packed they get during the day." I knew. I also knew Kevin hated exercise unless it involved walking to his car, and his coordination peaked at successfully navigating a TV remote. We lived in Austin, Texas, a city brimming with life, music, and yes, pickleball courts, but not ones that exclusively operated under the cloak of darkness for clandestine affairs. His partner in this supposed athletic endeavor? Olesia, a woman whose name sounded like a sigh and whose existence I initially dismissed. Kevin painted her as a lonely divorcee, a fellow enthusiast finding solace in the rhythmic thwack of a plastic ball. He was just being a friend, a mentor, even. He was good like that, he reminded me, always helping the less fortunate. The irony wasn't lost on me, considering I was footing more than half our bills, including the lease on the trendy South Congress apartment he insisted we needed, despite my preference for something quieter, more affordable. My salary as a senior marketing manager dwarfed his sporadic income from consulting, a nebulous term for giving unsolicited advice to businesses that rarely took it. The gaslighting was a masterclass. When I questioned the late nights, the constant texting, just coordinating court times, honey, the sudden password protection on his phone, IT security best practices you wouldn't understand, I wasn't concerned. I was controlling. I wasn't intuitive. I was paranoid. I wasn't asking for basic respect in a relationship. I was failing to meet his needs as a man. That last one became his mantra, a weaponized phrase deployed whenever I dared to assert a boundary or express dissatisfaction. My needs. Apparently, they involved accepting his increasingly erratic behavior and funding his lifestyle without complaint. We weren't on a break. That was his retroactive justification, spat out during the inevitable implosion. There was no mutual agreement, no pause button pressed. There was just me, exhausted from his emotional manipulations and his vague, persistent dissatisfaction, telling him one tearful Tuesday night that I couldn't keep living with the anxiety, that something had to change. He'd twisted that into a break, a green light for the affair he was likely already knee-deep in. My plea for connection became his convenient loophole. The truth surfaced not through a dramatic confrontation, but a mundane technological betrayal. His smartwatch, synced to our shared family tablet, a relic from when we optimistically planned a blended future, buzzed late one night while he was supposedly deep in a pickleball tournament semifinal across town. It wasn't a score update. It was Olesia. "Still thinking about last night. You were incredible. Can't wait to ditch this paddles and get back to the real game." Followed by another, "Don't forget the lube this time, old man." The world tilted. The air thickened. Pickleball, lube, old man. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. It wasn't a drunken mistake, a one-off slip. It was calculated. Months of lies, manipulation, and late-night pickleball sessions that clearly involved different kinds of balls altogether. He wasn't just cheating. He was constructing an elaborate fantasy. using me as the unwitting stage manager and financier. When I confronted him, armed with the time-stamped evidence glowing accusingly, from the tablet screen his facade didn't just crack, it disintegrated. First came the blustering denial, then the pathetic attempt to minimize. It didn't mean anything. Followed by the classic blame shift. You pushed me away. You weren't meeting my needs. He even tried to weaponize our supposed break. Technically, Sarah, we weren't even together, he'd yelled, his face flushed, cornered. Technically, Kevin, I'd replied, my voice dangerously calm. You're a 54-year-old man who's been lying to me for months while I pay for the roof over your head. Get out. Leaving him should have been the end. It should have been the clean break, the severing of a toxic tie. But Kevin wasn't the type to let go easily, especially when he still needed something. And he always needed something. My apartment became his confessional, my phone line his personal crisis hotline. He'd call, weeping about his guilt, the mess he'd made of his life. He'd lament the complexities of his relationship with Alessia. Apparently, the thrill wore off quickly when reality set in. He detailed their arguments, her demands, his frustrations. It was surreal. Listening to the man who shattered my world bemoan the difficulties of the affair that caused the shattering. I was no longer his fiancée, the woman he betrayed. I was relegated to the role of unpaid therapist, the ever-patient. Sounding bored for his self-inflicted drama, why did I answer? Shamefully. It was a cocktail of ingrained habit, misplaced pity, and a lingering stupid hope that maybe, just maybe, the man I thought I loved was still buried somewhere beneath the wreckage. I'd spent years managing his moods, soothing his ego, cleaning up his messes, metaphorical and sometimes literal. Falling back into that role felt sickeningly familiar. The absolute nadir came via text message. A screenshot. It was Alessia's final sign-off, a curt, dismissive message ending their tryst. He sent me his mistress's breakup text. As if I were his best mate, his confidant, the one person who would truly understand the nuances of being dumped by the woman he cheated on me with. The audacity was breathtaking. I stared at the screenshot, the casual cruelty of it, and felt something finally snap. The pity evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. Kevin, I texted back, my thumbs trembling with fury. Lose my number. Seriously, don't ever contact me again unless it's about the $15,000 you still owe me. He didn't reply about the money, of course. That debt, accrued over years of helping him out between consulting gigs, was just another inconvenient truth he preferred to ignore. Instead, he vanished from my inbox, but not, unfortunately, from the periphery of my life. News trickled back through mutual acquaintances, social media whispers, and the occasional, unwelcome update from his sister, who always viewed me with suspicion, as if I were the gold digger instead of the one being financially drained. Kevin, it turned out, hadn't used the breakup with Alessia as a catalyst for self-reflection, or, heaven forbid, focusing on his actual child, his teenage daughter Chloe, who lived with his ex-wife. Chloe, a quiet, perceptive girl already, burdened by her father's emotional inconsistency and the revolving door of women he introduced as special friends. No, Kevin had embarked on a new, even more delusional venture. He had flown across the country, from Austin to Portland, Oregon, to play instant stepdad to a single mom named Brenda and her 7-year-old son. Brenda was someone he'd apparently connected with online, another damsel in distress for Sir Kevin to rescue. I found out via a painfully cheerful Facebook post. Kevin, beaming, arms slung around Brenda, the little boy perched awkwardly on his knee. The caption read, "Finally finding my forever family. Blessed, not your new beginnings, at your Portland life." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just misguided. It was deeply irresponsible. This was a man who struggled to remember Chloe's birthday, who canceled planned weekends with her because something more important came up, usually involving pickleball, or Alessia, who contributed the bare minimum financially and emotionally to her upbringing. Now he was inserting himself into another child's life, playing house miles away, chasing a fantasy while his real daughter navigated the treacherous waters of adolescence with a father-shaped void. Against my better judgment, fueled by a genuine concern for Chloe and perhaps a morbid curiosity, I sent him one last message. Kevin, this is insane. You can barely manage your relationship with your own daughter. Playing dad to someone else's kid isn't going to fix your problems. Chloe needs you. This is pure escapism. His response was swift and final. I was blocked. That block was the final straw. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Chloe, about the trail of emotional debris Kevin left in his wake, about the narrative he was so desperately trying to control. He wanted to erase me, erase the affair, erase his failures, and paint himself as the victim who finally found happiness. His sister and his ex-wife, fed only his curated version of events, already treated me like the villain who broke poor Kevin's heart and drove him away. They didn't know about Olesia, the gaslighting, the financial drain, the months of post-breakup, emotional vampirism. They didn't know how he'd triangulated me not just with Olesia, but with a string of other women he'd used for validation or to provoke jealousy throughout our relationship. They only saw the charming, misunderstood man, the victim of a demanding younger woman. I was sick of it. Sick of being the silent repository for his secrets, the keeper of his ugly truths. Sick of being painted as the bad guy while he skipped off to Portland to play make-believe. He wanted to control the narrative? Fine. But he wasn't going to do it using my silence as his shield. There was one person left who deserved the full picture, someone whose opinion Kevin actually seemed to care about, albeit in a performative, approval-seeking way. His mother, Eleanor. Eleanor was a formidable woman in her late 70s, sharp-witted, devoutly religious, and fiercely protective of her family's image. She lived in a pristine retirement community in Scottsdale, Arizona. Kevin presented himself to her as the dutiful son, the successful consultant, the man who'd unfortunately chosen the wrong fiancé, me. He'd fed her a sanitized version of our breakup, mutual, amicable, just different paths. He certainly hadn't mentioned Olesia or the real reasons I'd left. He relied on Eleanor's financial safety net occasionally, and more importantly, her unwavering belief in his inherent goodness. Picking up the phone to call her felt like igniting a fuse. My heart hammered against my ribs. Was this petty? Vindictive? Maybe. But it also felt necessary. It felt like truth. Kevin had blocked me, effectively silencing my voice in his life. Fine. I would speak to the one person he couldn't easily block or dismiss. Eleanor, it's Sarah. There was a pause. Sarah, dear? Is everything all right? I haven't heard from you since you and Kevin decided to part ways. Her voice was polite, but cool. The Kevin-approved narrative had clearly reached Scottsdale. Actually, Eleanor, that's why I'm calling. I took a deep breath. Things are not all right, and I don't think Kevin has been entirely honest with you about why we broke up, or about what he's been doing since. Oh? The coolness intensified. Kevin told me you both realized you wanted different things. It's sad, but understandable. What Kevin told you is a lie, I said, the words tumbling out, gathering momentum. Kevin didn't realize anything. Kevin had a months-long affair with a woman named Olesia while we were engaged. He lied to me constantly, gaslit me, made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting. I found explicit messages confirming it. That is why I left him, Eleanor. I kicked him out of the apartment I was paying for. Silence crackled on the line. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, reconciling this with the image of her perfect son. An affair? She finally whispered. Kevin wouldn't. He did, I interrupted, pressing on before doubt could take root. And it didn't stop there. After I left, he spent months calling me, crying, treating me like his therapist, telling me all about his drama with Alessia. He even sent me her breakup text. He manipulated me emotionally long after he destroyed our relationship. And the $15,000 he borrowed from me over the years? Still waiting for that. I let the financial detail hang in the air. Eleanor was meticulous about money. $15,000? Her voice was sharper now. Yes. And now? Now he's abandoned his responsibilities. Here, including his daughter Chloe, who barely hears from him, to fly off to Portland and play dad to a stranger's child he met online. He's living in a fantasy world, Eleanor, running from the messes he made, and he's been letting everyone, including you, believe I was the problem. I laid it all out. The late-night pickleball lies, the emotional manipulation, the neglect of Chloe, the Portland delusion, the financial irresponsibility. I spared no detail. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the pattern, the deep-seated narcissism, the refusal to take accountability. Eleanor was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy, laced with a weary resignation I hadn't heard before. He told me he was going to Portland for a consulting opportunity. A big one. He said Brenda was just a friend helping him get settled. Another lie exposed. And Chloe, he always says she's so busy with school activities when he tries to call. Eleanor, I wouldn't call you like this if it wasn't true. I said softly. I'm not trying to be malicious. I'm just done. I'm done covering for him. I'm done being the villain in his story. You deserve to know the truth about your son. We talked for another 20 minutes. She asked questions, quiet, pointed ones. She didn't explicitly say she believed me over Kevin, but the tone had shifted. The polite coolness was gone, replaced by something that sounded suspiciously like dawning horror and maternal disappointment. She thanked me, her voice strained, and hung up. The fallout was immediate and nuclear. Within hours, my phone exploded with calls and texts, not from Kevin initially, but from his sister and his ex-wife. How could you? His sister shrieked through the phone. Going behind his back, telling lies to his mother, you're trying to ruin him. You vindictive bitch, his ex-wife texted. Kevin is finally trying to be happy, and you pull this? Stay away from his family. They still didn't get it. They were so entrenched in Kevin's narrative, so invested in the idea of him as the perpetual victim, that they couldn't conceive of him being the architect of his own destruction. To them, I hadn't revealed the truth. I had fabricated lies out of spite. Then came the call from Kevin. Blocked number, but I knew. You called my mother? He hissed, his voice trembling with rage. You told her? What did you tell her? Everything, Kevin, I said, surprised by my own calmness. The dam had broken. There was nothing left to hold back. I told her about Alessia, about the lies, about the money, about Portland, about how you use people and discard them. I told her the truth you were too cowardly to admit. You betrayed me. You made me look bad. That was private. What's private, Kevin? Your affair? Your manipulation? Your neglect of your daughter? You made your choices. You built this narrative where I was the unstable, demanding shrew you barely escaped from. I just corrected the record. You didn't like me meeting your needs. Well, consider this my final act of service. I'm no longer cleaning up your messes or protecting your reputation. You want to live in a fantasy? Fine. But don't expect the rest of us to play along, especially not the people you've hurt. My mother is devastated. My sister, my ex, they all see you for what you are now. Good, I said. Maybe they'll finally see you for what you are. Goodbye, Kevin. I hung up and finally blocked his number for good. The aftermath was messy. Lines were drawn. Some mutual friends awkwardly distanced themselves, caught in the crossfire. His family solidified their stance. I was the vengeful ex from hell. But Eleanor? Eleanor quietly wired me $5,000 a week later. No note, just the transfer confirmation. It wasn't the full amount Kevin owed, but it was an acknowledgement. A silent signal that she knew I hadn't been lying. I heard later, through a friend of a friend, that she'd had a very serious conversation with Kevin, and his Portland consulting gig seemed to be on shaky ground. His visits back to Arizona became less frequent. Was it revenge? Yes, in a way. It was the revenge of reclaiming my own story, of refusing to be silenced or scapegoated. It was the satisfaction of knowing that the truth, however ugly, was finally out in the open, at least to the one person whose opinion seemed to penetrate Kevin's thick hide. He didn't get to rewrite history with me as the villain. I didn't magically heal overnight. The betrayal left scars, and the financial hit took time to recover from. But telling Eleanor, drawing that final definitive line, was liberating. It was the moment I stopped being Kevin's victim, his therapist, his enabler, his secret keeper. I stopped cleaning up his messes and started focusing on my own life, my own healing, my own future, one blissfully free of late-night pickleball, alibis, and the crushing weight of his lies. He could build whatever fantasy life he wanted in Portland or Timbuktu. His narrative no longer had any power over mine. The truth, it turned out, wasn't just cold. It was freeing. And that was the best revenge of all.